Hello and welcome to the show. For this week's FailRace versus the community, we were going to be doing some short course racing with E-Class cars. Maserati had a very, very poor start, managing to plummet its way down the order. The midfield with this, as you would expect, plenty busy through the opening few corners, trying to fit 3 vehicles wide. The Myers-Manx coming out the worst of all of that as the Fiesta continues to fight with the F100. Bugatti has got a good run up the inside of the Manx. The Manx a little bit unlucky. Once you end up out of the kind of stuck out wide, you can get steam trained by just about everybody. The giant Mercury is having a look for a way past, but not quite able to get that move completed. Although, to be fair, everything is giant when it is next to the Myers-Manx. This little group of cars would remain close through the early stages of the race. The Ford managing to get a little bit too much on the inside. Not quite where you want to be on the inside, across the curb, across the grass. Makes the F100 rather slow off the corner. The Bugatti is going to get 2 cars in one go as they head down towards the first corner. This not the easiest circuit to overtake on, as you can imagine. With E-Class cars, they're not going particularly fast, and the braking zones therefore aren't massive at the best of times, but when you're not going particularly fast, the braking zones aren't huge, which does make overtaking a tad bit more difficult, as the Fiesta was finding out. Tries to go around the outside of the F100, does not quite have the grip to do so. Towards its next corner, you can kind of side your way up the inside, which the Fiesta manages to draw alongside. The Bugatti throws it in too deep, ends up out wide, loses both of the 2 positions that he had worked so hard to get. Fiesta eventually making the move stick, but an F100 all over the bumper around this very long final corner. The Fiesta is stuck on the inside, has to a little bit of a lift across the curb or whatever, and is slowed down enough to let the F100 back in front. Interesting battle, certainly. The Fiesta's again having a look up the inside into turn 1, just ever so slightly tanks the back of the F100, but there's kind of just about space to put a Fiesta there. You'll draw alongside, but then you'll be stuck trying to go the long way round towards the next corner, and the Bugatti, having fallen off the road, would quickly catch back up to this group. Again, the Fiesta can get the exit, but you're still going to find yourself on the wrong side for the run towards the next corner. Further back was perhaps where the busiest part of the field was. Certainly top 2, we kind of ran away, had a very, very lonely race for the majority of this. Yeah, further back there was some interesting racing going on. Master Cosmo carrying too much speed around that final turn, going for a little bit of an explore. Thankfully plenty of runoff area for if you do end up going for a little bit of an explore through all of that. This Mini we're following here, very, very quick through the corners, as you would kind of imagine. Struggled a little bit in terms of straight line speed and acceleration, while of course these circuits are more about the handling. They are shorter tracks. If you really, really struggle with that straight line speed, with that acceleration, sometimes you can find it very difficult to find ways past other vehicles, although this group now caught up to a group head Maserati Escort, all fighting for position. One of them was very, very sideways, and you end up having your little battle being slowed down, just getting stuck. There's not necessarily somewhere you can put the car. The Mini's trying to go around the outside of the Maserati, doesn't quite get it cleanly done. That slows the Mini down, and now it is the Cadet's turn to try and have a good run on the outside of the corner. Isn't quite close enough though as they head up towards turn 1. 4th place was back to fighting for the Bugatti. Up ahead, the Fiat had managed to run away a little bit as these guys fought over the positions. The Bugattis, I was driving one of these Bugattis, not too bad for this sort of racing. It's a big, big dive from the classic Grand Prix car to get up the inside of the F100 through that first corner. That is where you are most likely to see overtakes around this circuit. If you've got decent brakes on the car, you have a dive, throw it up the inside, is where the majority of overtakes are going to happen around here. Still, for such a big kind of outbraking manoeuvre, quite impressive to see how much later the Bugatti could be on the brakes. This BMW and Manx would actually fight for the vast majority of the race. Again, similar manoeuvre up towards turn 1. BMW gets a better run out of the final corner, is able to get the car just about stopped in time. You've got to be careful with, of course, somebody going for the cutback, although in cars like this, cutbacks is a little bit less effective in some ways. It's a little bit more difficult to get the speed, like the acceleration out of the corner to make that cutback work, because you just end up on the wrong side for the corner further down the line. The Manx gave it a good shot at trying to get back past in the end. Couldn't quite make it work, and the BMW would move up a position. This cadet was finding other places to go for overtakes around the outside of Alfa Romeo GTV6. It's a, well, kind of a three-part corner you have to go around the outside to make it work before the cadet finally gets to the inside, but it's a very short corner for the Opel to be on the inside, so it's going to be 4 turns around the outside of the Alfa Romeo before he can finally get the pass completed. Helped with the Alfa getting a bit of sideways action through that final corner. Yeah, that's a lot of corners. That's a lot of track to be stuck on the outside and make a pass stick, but the cadets did get it done. Yeah, one of the few overtakes done in the more interesting of positions. At the front of the race, it would be one of the little Polaris golf carts that would go on to take victory. Now, one of the rules with this racing was the vehicles couldn't be all-wheel drive, otherwise everyone would just have horrendously powerful all-wheel drive things. However, drivetrain swaps, of course, are allowed, and this little buggy was completely uncatchable. Completely uncatchable. Started on pole. My Bugatti was in second. I did fall off the road on the penultimate lap, but even so, it was miles quicker. Miles quicker than my Bugatti. There was just nothing I could do about it. Phenomenally quick around this circuit. I don't have the end screen, unfortunately. I crashed out of the lobby before I could record it. It's Tim in Ninetails that won with the Polaris, me in second with the classic Bugatti, and in Pega's Bugatti would come home in a third place. Race number 2, I would find myself starting on a pole position here as you went to the Maple Valley Short Circuit. As you can tell by the, well, rather looming clouds, there was a chance of rain. As ever when I do these, I like to give it, if I'm going to have a potentially wet race, I like to do it as a chance rather than your guaranteed weather. You never quite know what you're going to get with these. Is always interesting. Yeah, I found myself managing to do that little bit of a breakaway at the front, with the mid-pack being plenty busy through a very, very long first corner as something falls off the road. I think it's a Civic got for a little bit of a wander off the circuit. Much like Catalonia, this is not an easy place to get overtaking done. There aren't massive braking zones around here, and a lot of the corners are very, very quick, so you've got to hope that you have a lot of grip to get around the outside of somebody. The power cars were not enjoying this particular circuit. If you'd gone for more power in your E-Class car, you were looking like you might be in a little bit of trouble around here, because there's not really a huge amount in the way of straights. There's just lots of long corners to not be able to put any power down. The Alpine that we were following here, managing to make a move up the inside in this first corner. Yeah, passes were difficult things to get completed around here. This Holden had started in second place, but had far too much power and far too little grip for the circuit, and would gradually throughout the course of the race slip backwards. It already lost out to a Mini. You can't even see my Bugatti at this moment in time. I completely run away in the first couple of laps, which was yeah, kind of unusual. Not very often that I get to do that in a race. The Holden with no grip is going very, very exploring. Now, of course, it will be very quick around the kind of start-finish straight area, so it could potentially be a bit of a nightmare to have to deal with. Fortunately for the other cars, they were so much faster through the corners that, yeah, there was just nothing the Holden could do. The Volvo and Lotus, however, managed to get tangled. The front of one car caught on the rear of another, and nobody can turn out of it. So the Holden would only end up losing one position in all of that, as the Capri would get past. Not that would really stop the Elan. It did not take the Elan very long whatsoever to catch back up through the field, and he was now trying to find a way up into the podium positions against that Ford Capri. It's a big dive. It's a long, long way back. Again, in E-Class cars, it's from a fair way back for the Elan, but that Lotus is very, very good under brakes. You would kind of expect it. Let's face it, a Lotus, very, very small, very, very light indeed. Will get up the inside. The Capri put up a very, very good fight, trying to go the long way around turn 1. However, in the end, yeah, not much could be done. The Volvo's going exploring in the background. Yeah, a fair few cars would go for the odd Explorer at that part of the circuit. It's very, very easily done. Even in E-Class cars, it's very easily done to push it a little bit too hard and go for an exploration. That would drop the Volvo back behind the Holden once more as this lot would continue. The Holden would continue to kind of plummet through the field a little bit, but would have a lot of fighting along the way. 3 cars on the grass through that final corner. A couple of them pinging off the wall. Like I say, the Golf and the Alfa did a fantastic job of avoiding everybody trying to regain control of their cars. Sure enough, though, with only a few laps remaining, the rain would arrive. That really isn't what the Holden wanted to see. The Alfa Romeo easy around the outside there to move up a position. There's another car on the outside here trying to find a way past. That would be the Golf alongside and through. Now the Civic is going to join in the fun in all of this. The Volvo trying to get up the inside. Golf runs it very, very close across the curb. Sure enough, the Civic's up the inside of the Holden. The Volvo is going to get past as well. The Volvo now trying to go around the outside of the Golf. The Civic does get past the Golf in all of that. At the front of the field, I had led the way. The Mini had caught up a little bit, then the gap had stabilised, and then the rain fell. And that was not good news for my Bugatti. It was not good news at all. In the dry, been fairly competitive. In the wet, though, I had no speed compared to that of the Mini. I just didn't have any grip left in the Bugatti. I was it was, yeah, pretty much on edge through all of these long corners, and there was just nothing left to fight with. Oh, yeah, I've been praying that it stayed dry. I knew I was going to struggle if the rain started to fall. Didn't realise just quite how much faster the Mini was all of a sudden going to become when the going got wet. I fought as much as I could, but as we come up towards this final corner, I'm stuck. I'm not even stuck on the outside. I just can't get my vehicle slowed down or turned anywhere near as well as the Mini. I can't get it. I could never really get it off of this final corner particularly well in the dry, but yeah, when the rain started to fall, there was not much that could be done, and the gap that the Mini could make in just a few laps was massive. I think about 2 laps of driving around in the rain that we had, and you can barely see the Bugatti in the background. That's what happens. It's what happens when you have variable weather and so on. Sometimes cars work in one, sometimes they don't. The Mini would go on to take victory, and it was a fairly decent margin of victory. I mean, we were catching up to some of the back markers on this final laps of the cars that were struggling a little bit more around this circuit. Yeah, victory for the Mini. Still another podium for the Bugatti, which was quite nice. I was pleased to see that the Bugatti was doing well. Yeah, Mini was so unbelievably fast in the wet. With Westmeister, that were to take victory. Me claiming second place. Hordes with the Lotus Elan climbing up into third. Our final race, we would go to the Rio Mini circuit. Always an entertaining one when it comes to these short course races. It's essentially a triangle. There are 3 acceleration zones followed by 3 decent sized braking zones, so overtaking isn't too bad around this circuit. Again, game had been very kind to me. Game had been very kind to me in my starting position for these races. However, a couple of slightly odd replay things. There is a car in this race that some people couldn't see. Now, I could see it in the actual lobby when I was actually racing. However, the replay, it doesn't show it. I've never seen that happen before in Forza. Also, the lighting conditions are completely wonky. This was not done as a kind of dusk race. This was middle of the day, bright sunshine. So for whatever reason, the replay's showing it at the wrong lighting conditions. It's, yeah, a little bit weird. But the random vanishing car that was in the lobby for me but isn't in the replay is a new one. Because this is my replay. This isn't like a borrowed, I say borrowed, isn't a shared replay. So, yeah, there might be a couple of cars missing from this replay. Either way, it was a suitably busy first lap. I had to at one point take avoiding action that dropped me a fair way down. I say fair way down the field, dropped me towards the lower parts of the top 10. Trying to fight with a Myers Manx, probably not the best idea I've ever had. The Manx was very, very quick accelerating out of these corners. And Nissan Safari would lead these opening laps. I would end up losing position to the second of the classic Bugattis. I had now got a Polaris having a look around, trying to find a way past. The kind of saving grace on the Bugatti was the brakes, which is phenomenal. It was so good at getting slowed down into some of these corners. This would become the battle for second place. Early on, Ford F100 holding on to second, while the Nissan Safari would gradually build a little bit of a lead. However, the Ford under increasing pressures from the Myers Manx. The Manx liked this circuit. The Manx was enjoying this track. Plenty of acceleration in that little buggy to set good lap times, but he was having a bit of a tough time trying to find a way past the F100. Certainly, the Ford pickup was not a slow vehicle. Not a slow vehicle at all around here. It's good to see an interesting variety of vehicles going quickly around these circuits. Still, the Manx was there looking. It took a few laps. As I said, this isn't the most difficult circuit that we went to overtake on. If defended well, still not the easiest place to get passes done. And it did take the Manx a while to find a way past that F100 and continued to harry to look for a way past. Now, while some of the other races had a little bit more spread out field, there were sort of patches in the field where you might end up circling around on your own. Not so much the case here. I mean, the Rio Mini Circuit is a very, very busy track at the best of times, so there was plenty of different fights going on throughout the field. I could have pointed the camera at various different parts of the pack, and you would find somebody racing against somebody. There was another Holden in this race that was equally struggling with a lack of grip. Very, very quick down the short straights, but was being absolutely monstered when it came to the corners. The thing was, the cars behind were struggling to get past. The BMW was not quite quick enough through the turns to do anything about the Holden, and then we get to the straights and the Holden would be long gone by the time we then got to the next braking zone. The Fiesta, faster car of the lot of them, was able to pick them off, kind of could carry the speed through the corners and then had decent enough acceleration down the next straight, get around the outside of the BMW as well, kind of around the outside of the BMW. The turn one is then uses the Tirana to block in that BMW through the next corner, keeps the Fiesta alongside. The Holden is sideways, quite considerably sideways, around that next corner up towards the final hairpin. BMW wants to dive up the inside of the Fiesta, can't do it because the Holden's still in the way. The Fiesta's around the outside of the Holden. I think the Holden and BMW get a little bit connected. Fiesta is able to make the most, quickly try and break away from that Holden, try and get away from it before it gets towards the braking zone for turn one. I was stuck in my own little constant battle. My Bugatti was pretty decent around the corners. I slightly lacked a bit of acceleration. I was up against a Beetle, and the problem was I was quicker over the course of the lap, undoubtedly quicker than the Volkswagen, but I just couldn't clear it. I could keep getting alongside it, I could keep getting past it, and then as soon as we got to a straight, the Beetle would just be good enough to draw back alongside and make life awkward. And when I thought I'd finally got the pass done into the final corner, I was a smidge too late on the brakes, ran wide. I think I might have brushed the wall. I was just a little bit slow off of the corner. That allowed a Mini and a Woody to come and join in all of the fun of this little battle. I basically spent almost the entirety of the race swapping positions with cars in this group. Great fun, a great fun race. I get stuck on the outside to take a little bit too much speed. It's a very long way around the outside there, gets me in trouble. Bounce off the wall slightly. The Beetle is back past again. The Mini has got a little bit too much speed for us to try and deal with, but we're going to fight it as best as we can. Get the Beetle up the inside, ends up sort of blocking off that inside line a little bit. Fiesta's caught up to our squabbling group. The Beetle's back ahead of the Mini. I'm now coming to join in, and I know I can't outrun these cars down the straights, but I can outbrake all of them. Unfortunately, there's sort of 3 cars wide ahead of me. There's not really too much that you can do at that point. I can't have a big dive under the brakes because there's nowhere to put my car. Still, the Beetle and the Mini go side by side. The Woody's managed to outdrag me and get past, although he conks the back of the Beetle. I spot a gap, which I, as soon as I can, will take it. The Fiesta is quicker than us. So as much as I was busy trying to fight the crazy Woody, the Fiesta goes round the outside of me with some superior straight line speed and a bit more superior grip as well. It's 3 wide into the final hairpin. It was a lot going on for us back there, and it went on for almost the entirety of the race. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, the Safari was being caught by the Myers Manx, and in fact, the Meyer Manx would outdrag the Nissan down the start-finish line. The Safari had enjoyed a fairly large lead early on, but that Manx was mighty fast around this circuit. I think the Safari might actually have been a little bit quicker through the corners, but lacked the acceleration, lacked the straight line speed, and over the course of the lap, it would be the Manx that was the quicker car of the two. And yeah, it certainly helps when you can simply outdrag your rival and then still maintain good enough corner speed around a circuit like this. It makes the overtaking a little bit easier because, well, this group, we were still going at it for the later stages. I managed to stay clear of the Beetle. The problem was I was up against the Ford Woody that was perhaps one of the fastest cars here in a straight line. Horrible through the corners. Looked like a complete and utter handful when it came to the corners. So I could keep sweeping past him through the turns, but I knew I needed to be a certain distance ahead of him by the time we got to the final corner. The Woody was always going to out-accelerate me. It was always going to out-drag me down towards the start-finish line, but I knew if I was with, I think, about 43 feet, if I could be ahead of him about 43 feet by the time we came out of the final corner, the Woody would be able to draw up alongside me, might get his nose ahead of me by the time we get to turn 1, but I could out-brake him, so I had to maintain enough speed through the corners that we could stay ahead, and it was just repeated lap after lap. Down towards turn 1, the Woody would be stuck on the outside, unable to get a pass, or unable to kind of outbrake my Bugatti. He could fight back through these next few corners, but I could cause him grief. I do think I messed up slightly with the setup in my Bugatti. I think I made it a little bit too low, because it was bottoming out across some of these curbs that probably wasn't helping me in lap times. The Woody gets very, very sideways. He's almost able to fire up the inside into the final hairpin, but not quite. The Beetle had a BMW to deal with in all of that. Yeah, it's excellent fun in the midfield in this race. At the front of the field, it would be the Myers Manx that would lead the way. The Nissan Safari would drop back a little bit. The Polaris moving up into second. In fact, the Polaris was very, very quick as well around this circuit. I think, in fact, the Polaris a little bit, or probably the fastest vehicle here, a little bit faster than the Manx, ran out of laps to really catch up to the buggy. So it would be the Manx that would claim a victory here at Rio. The Polaris in second, while the Safari would fall to third. But still a good showing from the Safari. It's still a fair bit ahead of the rest of the field. It would be Aaron McGrath with that Manx that would take victory. Invisible AK in second. Timid Ninetails rounding out the podium. Yeah, Rio Mini was a huge amount of fun. There was sort of a few big clusters of cars, sort of 4 or 5 cars, in battle packs. While it was a little bit more separated out at the front, it was some manic racing, and that's kind of half the fun of the short course stuff. Maple Valley Catalonia School were okay in places, were a little bit more spread out than Rio Mini. Places like some of the short versions of Long Beach are just kind of too tiny circuits to have any hope of proper racing around, hence why I didn't use them. Kind of tried to go for a little bit of variety. Yeah, Rio Mini does work pretty damn well for these, and I was pleased with the Bugatti. You know, Bugatti works pretty damn well. Wasn't quite the fastest car for this, but you know, up against the Minis and so on, yeah, I'd say the Bugatti did itself pretty damn proud for such an old car. That, though, is going to be it for this week's Versus the Community. The next one is going to be on Thursday, the 28th of December. It's going to be the final one of this year. So we are going to go racing with A-Class cars made in 2017 or 2018. So the newest of cars that we have to play around with in Forza. If you want to sign up and take part in that, you can via our forums. There'll be a link in the description. Find the FailRace Versus the Community section, and you can sign up in there. However, that's going to be it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.